Hi, welcome to Mikey's Video Game Madness. Today we're playing Spy Hunter on the PlayStation 2. This also came out later on the original Xbox and the GameCube. I don't normally say this, but even though the Xbox version has a little bit extra bells and whistles, I believe the GameCube version is a little bit improved as well because the GameCube was more powerful. You have to understand that these systems came out a year after the PlayStation 2. Even though the Xbox versions looks a little bit better with like its typical like normal maps, reflections sharper, shit like that. It's also a little bit darker too for some reason. The PlayStation 2 version actually runs better. Also, I believe the Xbox version has the original Spy Hunter. I don't think I ever played the GameCube version, but as far as the Xbox version goes, even though on paper you think it would be better, the PlayStation 2 was the original code, and the PlayStation code was really unique. So for it to be ported to like basically a PC-like platform, and it was one of the first games that came out for it, it doesn't run as well. So if you want the best performing version, you want to go with the PlayStation 2. Anyway, this was one of the games that made me want a PlayStation 2. There was Metal Gear Solid 2, which of course is the main reason why I wanted a PlayStation 2. And then there was Spy Hunter. I never really played Spy Hunter that much in the arcades. I actually played it only a handful of times on arcades. I've got more familiar with the arcade version on the Midway Arcade Treasures collection, but I remember the cabinet and having all the cool buttons. The version I fell in love with was on the Commodore 64, and there was some cheat code that gave you way more lives than you're supposed to have, because if you played the arcade version, your game's over pretty quickly, usually before you even get a chance to turn into a boat. So, hearing one of my favorite games on the Commodore 64 getting like an update was one of the coolest things ever. I was kind of frustrated it wasn't coming out on PlayStation 1. But, life's a bitch sometimes and you gotta suck it up. So, this was one of the first PlayStation 2 games that I ever got. I got it fairly shortly after my birthday. My first game that I got on PlayStation 2 was Zone of the Enders. Not for that game, but because it came with a Metal Gear Solid 2 demo. How pathetic is that? Zone of the Enders is actually a pretty good game. I plan on covering the HD versions. There's two games in that series. Also, like, made by, well, I think it was produced by Hideo Kojima. I hope I'm saying his name right. The creator of Metal Gear. And whatever weird game that Normus Reedus is in now. I can't think of the title, but it's pretty strange looking. And I think that was like a proof of concept trailer for E3. So I don't even know what the final game is going to be like. I heard it might have mechs or something in it. I don't even think they have an engine picked out for it yet, so I don't even know what it was running on. I had a feeling Konami was going to acquire the Fox engine, which is a great engine. Unfortunately, I think the only thing I've seen it utilized is that Metal Gear survival game with the zombies in it that looks strange. Hopefully, Konami gets their shit together and hopefully that game turns out well and they do their franchises justice. I wouldn't mind seeing them sell off some of their stuff and actually let other people take a crack at it. I mean, there's people who have done amazing things with licenses that weren't originally theirs. For instance, look at the new Tomb Raider games. Core designed the original Tomb Raider games, which were good in their own right. I wasn't a huge original Tomb Raider fan. I'd like the first couple of games. I think I liked the fourth one too. And then when Crystal Dynamics took over, it was game on. And then they even refined it more with the reboot and then Rise of the Tomb Raider. So sometimes when you give a different company a license, sometimes they can do it justice and maybe just publish it. I don't know. But if they're not going to do anything with their license and are do a good job with their licenses, I really hope that they maybe let somebody else buy them out. I would love to see Castlevania be like one of the top tier games again. That's like my all-time favorite series, or used to be my all-time favorite series. I couldn't even tell you what my all-time favorite series is now, to be honest with you. There's so many good IPs out there now. But my all-time favorite game is probably Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And I always wanted to see that game go into 3D properly. They had 3D versions that were good, but they didn't feel like Castlevania games. They were more like fantasy, Lord of the Ring kind of games instead of horror action games, which basically what were the Castlevania games were like. So this was a cool reboot. This took essentially the idea of Spy Hunter and added objectives. Now, one thing I'm not crazy about this particular iteration of Spy Hunter is that you're required to do a certain amount of objectives or it won't let you progress the level. You like actually have to gain points with objectives, and that's fine. But then later on in the game, you have to start collecting the hidden stuff in order to progress, which I feel like should be optional, like maybe in-game content stuff to keep you busy, maybe get a secret ending or a special car or something. But you get to this point where you actually have to go back and start replaying the levels. Now, I'm terrible at this game because I honestly haven't played this game, and well, it's 2001 is when I originally got this game, where I played the crap out of it, and I got fairly decent at it and remembered where everything is, but now it's not second nature to me. So it was about 15 years ago when I played this game. Probably not quite 15 years, because I can't remember exactly what month it came out, but fairly close, not come to think of it, because my birthday just passed not too long ago, and I remember getting Spy Hunter. I think Spy Hunter might have came out in October or something. I should have Wikipedia it up. Is that a word? Is that a verb now? I don't know. But I should have looked it up before I did this video. Oh well. I mean, it's not like I got 2 billion people watching this now, and I'm getting paid for this. I'm doing a social service. I do this just because I enjoy it, honestly. But yeah, this is a nice little reboot. I really like the theme park kind of level design, where it's like a narrow track where everything's kind of planned out, which is really fun. If you didn't have those objectives and that were required, or maybe not have to find like the hidden shit, this game would be, in my opinion, a lot better. Because honestly, I don't like playing the same levels over and over again. Maybe if you want to get bonus stuff, that would be cool, or level up or something. But for it to be required to progress, it's sort of annoying, because some things are sort of strict, like you can't get to them sometimes after you reach a certain point. Also, the reverse is kind of weird. Your reverse is your break, but then if you like tap it, I'm still not even quite sure how it works. Sorry, I suddenly got the hiccups during this video. Of course, I get the hiccups now. But you tap it and then it switches gears and you'll go reverse. You'll see a couple of times where I attempt to do it. This is a really nice looking game for an early PlayStation 2 game, I will admit. I got the port of Crazy Taxi, and that didn't really port over all that well. The controls off on it. I don't know if it has to do with the analog stick being different from the Dreamcast, or they just didn't nail down the control, but it's a lot different feeling than the Dreamcast version, which is a shame. But this game controls really nicely and sharp, the way I wish Crazy Taxi would have controlled. But anyway, yeah, I used to play the Commodore 64 version of this all the time, and I just was was so excited to hear that they were going to come out with a reboot of this. They actually came out with 2 other sequels. The third one actually had parts in it where you actually got out of your car and the rock starred in it. It was really weird. I think Terminal Reality, who's out of business now, who later went on to make the awesome 2009 Ghostbusters game, the Blood Rain games, and that weird Kinect Star Wars game that had the weird karaoke segments in it. It looks like a cool idea. I've never played it. I just think it looks weird because of the karaoke segments. But it looked cool when people were like pretending to control pod racers and stuff like that. But the control is kind of not second nature the way it controls. But this is a cool game. This is one of the few action vehicle games that wasn't like a arena type battle game like Vigilante 8 or Twisted Metal. There was a game called 007 Racing, which was pretty crude. They were actually supposed to come out with a PlayStation 2 version, but then they incorporated the Need for Speed engine and stuff, and I believe the first one was Agent Under Fire, and then there was Nightfire. They incorporated what they were going to do with the PlayStation 2 version of that game, but there was a version that came out on PlayStation 1, and even though it's called 007 Racing, it was a lot like this where you had objectives, but the game design was too big for the system that it was on, so it has a lot of frame rate issues. The graphics are really simplified and clunky because here I am trying to figure out how to back up. And it had a lot of potential, and you could see where they were going. In my opinion, at the time, it was a lot of fun. If I went back and played it now, I might not like it now that I've played faster running games, because sometimes that game didn't run really well. It's just like Driver 2 on the original PlayStation. Like, that game was designed bigger than the system it was for, and some of the areas of the game suffered from a lot of slowdown because they tried to make the game more epic, where I believe you could get out of your car and stuff like that. Like, you could tell Driver 2, the idea behind it was grand and amazing. But anyway, when I played 007 Racing, I was like, this is a really cool idea. I mean, I bet the PlayStation 2 version is going to be awesome, because I enjoyed the PlayStation 1 version for what it was at the time, but I didn't know any better because that's all I had. So later on in the year, when I heard this came out, I was stoked. Like, I believe I kept my birthday money until this game came out, because I had a summer job doing bricklaying work, and the whole purpose was to get a PlayStation 2. And then I went back to school, so I don't think I was working at the time, so I probably used my birthday money afterwards to get it. So I held on to it, and I was eating up everything that was coming out on the PlayStation 2 if I had the money. So the fact that I was able to save the money and wait for this is a testament to how excited I was about this game, instead of blowing it on some game that I didn't really care about. But everything on the PlayStation 2, it's kind of funny now to think, when I originally owned the PlayStation 2, I saw a DVD cutscene, which was unheard of. Like, it was really the first time I ever saw a DVD playing on a TV. I used to play DVDs on the computer, but the computer's higher resolution, so it doesn't quite have the same look on a monitor as it does on a TV. Like, a TV, to me, DVDs looked sharper on a CRT television than watching it on your computer. That's completely like a subjective opinion, of course. But I remember playing Zone of the Enders, and I couldn't tell the difference between gameplay and a DVD like scene, and it sounds ridiculous now, because now I can tell, like, all the fragments on the screen. You can tell it's sort of fuzzy. It's not as clear as what gameplay looks like, but it's crazy to think. It's like you train your eye to be able to see certain things as time goes on, and you see better things. But this is a really fun game. It's just sort of frustrating at times, like if you don't complete all your objectives and you have to start getting all the hidden stuff, then it starts becoming frustrating to have to go back and play the same levels over and over again. The sequels, I believe, are more forgiving, but the sequel's level design I don't think is as good as this first one. This one really feels like a theme park ride. This is made by the people that later on made the awesome but very difficult Terminator Salvation and Terminator 3 Salvation. I believe it had the 3 in it. And I guess you can kind of tell why that Terminator 3 was difficult, because this game's pretty difficult, although I'm driving like I don't know how to play, because like I said, I hadn't played in almost 15 years, so go figure. So that's why I'm not very good at it, but I managed to get through these 3 levels without dying, which is positive. But surprisingly, graphically, when I went back to play this, I was surprised how well it looked. And this is also available on the Xbox and the GameCube, and those aren't necessarily bad versions, but like I said, the game was made for the PlayStation 2 from ground up. You can really tell, because sometimes when you see PlayStation 2 ports, like the textures and everything are washed out and it looks like a half-assed job, because sometimes the PlayStation 2 isn't the lead platform. Well, since this was the only console out at the time that could handle this game and they were developing it, they were able to focus all their attention on the PlayStation 2, and thus this came out really nice in the better performing versions. Later on, there's of course better looking PlayStation 2 games, but this was one of the first exclusive PlayStation 2 titles to come out on the system in late 2001, I believe, is when this came out. So yeah, the Xbox and the GameCube were kind of quick ports. They slapped on the original arcade game. They put some of the polish that you see in some of the other Xbox games, but the performance on it isn't as good. It's not terrible. You can still play it, and it looks a little bit nicer than this. But you know, do you want better graphics or better performance? I personally would rather deal with slightly lesser graphics and better performance personally, but that's me. But I think this was a great game. It lived up to my expectations. I remember when the demo came out and I was playing it over and over again, and it was just the first 2 levels, and I would play it over and over again, which is funny because I had a problem when the game actually came out, that I had to go back and try to find little satellite dishes and stuff like that to get extra points to be able to progress. And this is actually a sequel to the original arcade game. Like in the beginning, I skipped through it, but it shows like the old car from the first game. I think you get to play it as the old car, like you get to unlock it. I don't remember how you do it. It's probably by collecting all those satellite things, and the more points you get, the more stuff you can unlock. But it's cool that they acknowledge the first game, even though it barely had any story. But this was a really cool game and very unique for the time. Like later on, the 007 games would have levels like this, but there wasn't really anything like this, and it feels like an update to the original arcade game. But anyway, I think this is a cool game. You can get this game for $2 or $3 if you're into collecting PlayStation 2 games, or if you even want to play it on the GameCube or Xbox. I'm just saying this is the better performing one. Xbox looks better, and I don't know much about the GameCube version. I think it's kind of on par with the Xbox version. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're all doing well, and this is a pretty good game. If you want to play something that feels retro and new at the same time, I would definitely recommend checking this out. Take care. Hope you're all well. Bye.
If you want to, like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.